Okay, good afternoon, everyone. There might be some repetition, and I apologize for that. But anyway, I'm Ann, and I'll be going through a quick operations update. And I'll be going through network availability, operational issues, service delivery, touch on our upcoming maintenances, and go over the dates of our change freezes. Our availability over the past few months has remained mostly high, though it's worth a mention that there has been a slight drop in LIN1. The drop in LIN1 availability has mainly been caused by a number of at-risk maintenances as part of the MX10K project. Some of the maintenances were not successful and impacted traffic during short periods of time. Generally, we only exclude the probes behind the routers being worked on from the SLA measurements, but in this case, of these maintenances, we saw short periods of packet loss across the links impacted by the failed maintenances, which were not excluded from the tool. We've had two power-related operational issues over the past few months. The first was a power issue at Telehouse West, where Core 3 THW lost power, isolating members directly connecting to it from the LIN1 LAN. The issue was caused by the power feeds being 16A breakers with 32A commando sockets. Our temporary fix was to split the power supplies across multiple feeds. We have since verified the power feeds of all the other racks with MX10K routers and replacing the ones as needed. And the other power outage was at LINX NoVA EvoSwitch. All members on Edge 1 EVM were affected. It was triggered by a utility power outage where the backup ran for an hour before the generators began to shut down. The data center has added measures to keep it from reoccurring, for example, a power redundancy. While we still are experiencing some ongoing teething pains, our NOC and network engineers have been working very hard in delivering everyone's orders. An example is a nice tweet from Chorus Networks, which addresses the service from end to end. In the past few months, there's been an increase in demand for 100 gig ports. LIN1 and Manchester have seen the greatest increase. We have 187 100 gig ports live and hoping to have 200 by the change freeze at the end of the year. There has also been a large increase in demand for ports at Telehouse North too. As LINX members span the globe, support and service delivery tickets are worked on at all hours. As illustrated from this graph, since January, support tickets are being opened 46% outside of UK business hours. And with provisioning and service delivery, 28% of tickets are opened out of hours. Okay. Our upcoming maintenances include the MX10K deployment, which Fleming will be talking about tomorrow. Our Telehouse East move, and we are currently using 2 suites in TFM50. This work consists of optimizing our space and consolidating all equipment in N9. A new LIN1 edge router is being prepared in N9, and members will be moved by LINX working with Telehouse to change the cross-connects to the new suite. Next is the Equinix Slough move, where new edge routers are currently being installed and taken into service, our new racks in LD6. LINX is working with Equinix to migrate members from the existing edge routers in our 2 locations in LD4 to the new routers in LD6 by provisioning new cross-connects and changing them over during planned maintenance windows. No work is required at the member end, and our NOC has been, contacting people regarding this. Another one to mention was in 2020, we have the new suite in Telehouse North 2 to help Fusion members there. Okay. Change freeze. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is touching on our change freezes. The first is the NoVA Thanksgiving change freeze, where there'll be no provisioning between the 27th of November and the 2nd of December. And the second is the holiday season change freeze, which goes into effect at 5:30 on the 18th of December through to the 6th of January. Okay, thank you. And any questions? Yes, Mike.
Yeah, can do. Quick question about the availability statistics.
Yes.
This is done with the SNMP probes across the network, isn't it, between a mesh of monitoring hosts?
Yes.
Do you know what size the packets are? Are they just small packets or large packets or what? Okay. It's a question that I asked on the membership or ops list a year or so ago and never really got a response. The reason being is that, particularly on LON 2, it's looking like it might be droppy, and it's very difficult to know for certain because discard stats aren't available. And if you're using small SNMP probes, then your chances of having a packet lost are probably about 1/20th of if it's a full-size packet. So I would like to get an answer to that somehow, and I don't know what the best way of getting the answer to that is. The second question was just with regards to the availability statistics. When there is some not 100% of availability, does anybody actually go through and try to determine why one of the monitoring probes was dropped?
Well, yes. In this case, it was because of the maintenances, because there was slow packet loss.
Oh, sure.
So.
But I mean, like, can you identify why each and every single lack of 100% happened? And was it always because of maintenance as opposed to the lands being possibly a bit lossy or anything like that?
Most of the times it's because of maintenances, but there are other reasons. I mean, the network engineers do go into it each time.
Okay.
Yeah.
With every single packet that's lost? Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure of every single packet, but yeah, when they get paged on it, they go through it.
Thank you.
Mike Hughes from Limelight Networks. Regarding the 100 gig port growth that you've observed, could you comment on the split of that in terms of between how many of those 100 gig ports, new 100 gig port growth is coming from CDNs, and how much of it is coming from the typical sync networks that the CDNs are being sent to? Transmitting to. I'll wake up in a minute. The concern, obviously, I've got is making sure that there's a good balance between the amount of bandwidth that tends to push traffic into the exchange versus having adequate sync bandwidth to absorb the traffic that's being put into the exchange. And obviously, it's up to members to manage their own capacity and keep an eye on that thing, but I am concerned that we're heading for an imbalance at the moment in the present environment.
I honestly couldn't tell you that offhand, but I can look into it and get back to you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
I was going to say, Mike, just on that. So we can run that and get you that probably by Mike and Fleming's presentation tomorrow. So we'll let you know.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Is that it?
Neil Scott.
Oh gosh, you guys are testing me today, aren't you?
It's not for you. It's to respond to Mike's question.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm not sure how. I mean. Richard will tell you a number. How you take any meaning from that number is beyond me. Because how do you know what sudden event that we're going to have? I mean, you really need to be managing that sort of capacity one-on-one, Mike, which I know you do with us at least. But I think asking that just feels so arbitrary, and how do you know the cross-connect capacity is there? And it just doesn't feel like a meaningless, valuable thing. So I would kind of say, the best way of managing that is for all the big sync and sources to kind of get on the phone, which I know happens. So I'm a bit kind of struggle with that. If you just want another way of beating us up for when we've not connected or when there's slowness, again, which I hope isn't the case, probably isn't the case. I'm just not sure that's the best way of going about it. But tell me what I try and understand what the problem is so that we can solve it rather than just having an arbitrary port count, which doesn't really give us anything useful in my view.
Is that it? Okay. Thank you.